Hey, everybody. It is a holiday weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy 80th to my dad as well. And happy President's Day weekend to you and yours. Welcome to an off-season edition. Although, as I'm about to tell you, there is no off-season. An off-season edition of Thinking Out Loud from the home office. My name is Aaron Siciliano. I added a golden football over my shoulder. I don't know why.
Nice.
I just have
like
100 footballs back here. But Crucial Catch football, Thank the Veterans football, and NFL 100 football. I just picked up a football. I don't know. I should probably put some Guardians or Indians or whatever bobbleheads back there as well. Maybe I'll get the Albert Bell back up there. But for now, it is a golden football. I hope you're doing well, and hope you have big plans for your Valentine's Day weekend. I did the dinner on Thursday night, not because I'm cheap. No. But because it's just a mess on Valentine's Day, because everyone is celebrating my dad's 80th. Not because it's Valentine's Day, but because Steven Siciliano is the headline on Friday. Sam Betesh is here chuckling in the background as well. A happy Super Bowl victory yet again to you. Congratulations, even though you were just a guy in a movie theater wearing horribly ugly socks.
That's true. Thank you. I didn't have the green knee highs, which you've seen me in an airport in Orlando, screaming at a television.
Other places as well. Yes.
You've seen that numerous times. It's parade day, which I know we'll get into later. And I'm conflicted on this. I'll explain. You can explain what it means to you. But it is parade day. That's I'm not going to say it's newsworthy. I think we both agree it's
not newsworthy. No,
it's kind of like somebody's bar mitzvah, really, basically. But it's. But it's exciting. There are, sort of invitations.
Yes, there's one every week. There are many every week.
There are. But the fact that it's on Valentine's Day is adorable for all of the signs. Everyone's holding the Love Hurts sign now makes sense.
It's the city of brotherly love.
It's adorable. Yeah. I didn't even go there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
Well, good. Yes, happy Valentine's Day to you and yours as well.
That's back at
cute.
You.
All right.
You and yours, and happy birthday again.
And Stevens,
to my dad, the big 8-0 today.
That's a big one. So is he doing it? I mean, anything fun? I mean, I've seen your dad at a celebration or two over our
they're doing a lunch today to avoid the dinner rush, and then we'll do something later. But that's yes.
It's
I watch this.
I believe it's Pat O'Brien's birthday today as well. I think
it is.
Yeah, I believe he's a Valentine's Day.
A fun fact: there are more people on Bourbon Street with assault rifles than there were. True story, with hurricanes from Pat O'Brien's, because it was heavily guarded, which is a good thing when we were down there in New Orleans. The parade also signifies the end of the season. It also signifies, let's just get to this, there is no off season. So with the extended season here, with the 17th game over an 18th week, and we're eventually going to get to an 18th game as well over how many weeks, 19 or 20, that is still to be determined. The Super Bowl will eventually be this weekend, President's Day weekend, and then everything has to move back as the NFL continues to dominate the calendar. We would always say, and I was with NFL Network for 14 years, that there is no off season. And let me prove it to you. 1 week from this Sunday, so on the 16th of February, push it forward to the 23rd. On the 23rd of February, the D linemen, the linebackers, and the specialists, the kickers and the punters, will begin arriving in Indianapolis for the Combine. But wait, there's more. This here President's Day weekend is actually kind of the beginning of something, because when President's Day weekend ends and we get to Tuesday, next Tuesday, that is when the window opens for franchise tags. Beginning next Tuesday, teams can use the franchise tag. For example, the Bengals can use the franchise tag next Tuesday on T. Higgins. The Vikings can use the franchise tag on Sam Darnold. Now, I don't think it's likely. And the way the franchise tag window works, you have 2 weeks. So you have until next Tuesday, until the Tuesday after the Combine to use it. Most teams, if they do use it, don't use it until after the Combine. Okay, people leave Indianapolis, you meet with agents, you try to figure out the lay of the land, and then you use the tag. You usually take it right up until that deadline before you actually place that tag. What that tag does mean it just takes the guy off the free agent market. Depends on the type of franchise tag you use. You can use a non-exclusive franchise, which means any team can go out and sign your player. You just have to give over 2 first-round picks. That never happens anymore. It ain't going to happen. No one's giving the Bengals 2 first-round picks for T. Higgins. If somebody wanted to do that, the Bengals would gladly take it and quickly. But you have a 2-week window. Then we get through the combine. Then, guys, free agency is going to begin right after that. March 10 is the start of the negotiation window for the new league year. And then March 12, teams can actually do deals. I'm going to lay down the law right now. I would say this for years, and I did say this for years on NFL Network. It is not the legal tampering window. There is no such thing as legal tampering. It's not tampering. You're allowed to talk. So when your favorite talking head comes on the television and says, it's the legal tampering window. No, they've made that up, or they're just lazy and they're taking that from other people. It's not legal tampering. It's not tampering. It is not tampering at all. The league allows teams and agents to discuss the parameters of deals. Now, you're not allowed to sign those deals, and sometimes you can change your mind, right? People talk about Josh McDaniels changing his mind. Well, other players have changed their mind, not just coaches. Frank Gore once famously changed his mind as well. So just because you have discussed the parameters of a deal and you have at least a verbal agreement on numbers and a contract, those deals can't become official until the 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That is truly the start of the new league year. But things are going to happen, and they're going to happen fast. Partly because the calendar is condensed, partly because agents and GMs kind of sort of were talking in Mobile. Agents and GMs kind of sort of were talking in New Orleans. And agents and GMs will definitely talk in Indianapolis. Now, is that tampering? That's a little bit different. If you're talking about the parameters of deals with teams that your player doesn't play for, then that's kind of sort of tampering. Does it happen in the back room of steakhouses in Indy? Yeah, definitely. I'll take you to the steakhouse if you want to go. The Cowboys bus is usually parked in front. That doesn't mean they're tampering, but just if you're in Indy, look for the Cowboys bus. Go in there. You never know what you might find. Nothing to do with the Cowboys. I'm saying that's where everyone kind of sort of meets. It's a well-known steakhouse. And no, it is not St. Elmo's, although I will be there at the bar on Monday, 2 weeks from now. Come say hi, because it's a Monday tradition. I sit at the bar at St. Elmo's and I catch up with some friends, not drinking, having a meal, and everyone kind of comes through and you kind of, say hi for the new league year, which begins on the 10th and the 12th, but kind of sort of really does begin in Indianapolis 2 weeks from now. And Sam, when it gets going, I'm going to say this right now, this will be the craziest quarterback off season we have ever seen. Now, go back to 2020. Tom Brady switched teams. He left the Patriots. He went to the Buccaneers. Also on that same day, the world shut down. COVID happened, and NFL Network kind of went dark the next day on Friday morning because somebody with a hazmat suit showed up at my house, put a camera in this room in which I now sit. Wow. Seriously. Wow. Looked straight out of Breaking Bad. And then I was told you're going to have to do Total Access Friday night at home on that camera. And I went, I haven't hosted Total Access since 2012, at least the Monday through Friday edition, not counting the weekends and the special games on Saturday in December. But like TA, they're like, oh, yeah, the network's probably going to shut down. Here's a camera. Okay. But that's another story for another time. 2020, when Tom Brady switched teams, when he went from the Patriots to the Buccaneers, we look at that as the craziest quarterback offseason of all time. I'm going to say it right now. This is going to be the craziest quarterback offseason of all time. Not because of the names like Aaron Rodgers, for example, who is officially a free agent, as the Jets bid adieu in a somewhat awkward post on the socials, but because of all the quarterback moves that may happen. Derek Carr, if you listen to Kellen Moore's press conference on Thursday, sure seems like he could be exiting New Orleans sometime soon. It sounds like Geno Smith is going to stay in Seattle. Clint Kubiak had his presser this week, but do the Seahawks draft a quarterback? And then what happens? There are so many. Matthew Stafford as an example as well. What if quarterback moves here where this will be wild. So, Sam, I know it's Valentine's Day. We're not going to do like one of those corny matchmaker bits here.
No, we don't have to be.
We're not going to do that. But you want to go through our list of quarterbacks and try to find potential homes for these quarterbacks?
Let's do it. Now, who do we want to start with? Do we want to, is the most obvious, and, obviously with what happened, Rodgers. I'm glad you said that was awkward, by the way. Is that the most interesting press release by a team that was, and considering how, Jay Glazer had put it out, 6 days prior to that?
On Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah. Right. And then the news comes out from the Johnson family with, we love, and Aaron Rodgers has embodied. I also want to say that Aaron Rodgers embodied what being a Jet is. Really? What? A, what is a Jet? B, Aaron Rodgers. Even in the chapter of Jets history, I don't even know where Aaron Rodgers shows up in all.
He's definitely a chapter.
He is, but
he might even be a book or 5. There will be let's just say it now. There will be multiple books written about his 18 months there.
Yes, although I think the book would be even better if you combined it with Brett Favre as a Jet as well. I think seeing both of those former Packers quarterbacks as Jets, different, but interesting.
Couldn't be more different.
Both really interesting for very different reasons. All right, so you want to start with Rodgers? You want to just should we do that with where Rodgers could end up? Yeah, go for it. I'll let you take this one first in regards to where you think he could, should, or may end up.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers first. If you look at the odds, and I don't really put a lot of stock in those, the odds right now say the Pittsburgh Steelers are atop the list. It makes sense for a lot of reasons. It's an historic franchise. He had obviously come from the Packers, tapped the base on the Jets. Now he's going back to an iconic franchise with a history of winning. Arthur Smith, heck of an offensive coordinator. You have a defense, an iconic coach, and a great football town. Green Bay is not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is not Green Bay, but you could see some symmetry there between the fan bases. It makes sense. It's a great division as well. I think there are a lot of things there that make sense, but let's go through some of the things that don't make sense. Right now, they don't have a running back. Both of their running backs, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, are set to hit free agency. That could be fixed pretty quickly, and this is also a great running back draft. They have, the last couple of years, I thought, drafted well on the offensive line. Not all those pieces have necessarily, A, stayed healthy, or B, worked out. The wide receiver position is interesting there. George Pickens is at least eligible for a contract extension this offseason. I wouldn't do it. I don't know that the Steelers are going to do it. Do Aaron Rodgers and George Pickens work together? Ugh, that would be interesting. So I don't know that all the weapons are there necessarily. And would the Steelers say, take all his buddies like Devontae Adams, who is likely going to be cut, and he might even be cut by the time we start this show and post this show on the interwebs? It kind of makes sense. But you know what also makes sense for the Steelers? Re-signing Justin Fields and then drafting a quarterback in the middle rounds. I think that makes sense. Now, could they go all in? Sure. I just don't think it's going to happen. People say, what about Las Vegas for Aaron Rodgers? Okay, sure. Close to his Malibu home, no state income taxes, another iconic franchise, granted one that hasn't done much recently, but look at the weapons around Aaron Rodgers there. They don't exactly jump off the page, with the exception, obviously, of Brock Bowers. He's pretty special. Also, what has Devontae Adams told him about Vegas? Does he want to go back there? I'm not sure. And when it comes to any Vegas quarterback here, there's only one question that needs to be asked when evaluating a possible Raiders quarterback, and that is, does Tom Brady want that quarterback? I know that's oversimplifying things, but you have to ask that question. Does Tom Brady want this quarterback? Because in the end, Tom Brady's going to have a lot of say on who the quarterback is. Oh, wait a minute. John Spytek is the GM. Yes, he is. Pete Carroll is the head coach. Yes, he is. They have considerable say here. But Spytek and Brady know each other from Michigan, know each other from Tampa. If you don't think that they are working together on whomever the new quarterback will be, you're kind of missing things. So that is the question. Would Tom Brady want Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. I truly don't. What about the Titans? Doesn't Aaron have a home in Nashville? Well, everyone has a home in Nashville. Again, no state taxes. It's a cool town. What about the Titans? Are the Titans a team with the weapons? Spears and Burks? I don't see it. They're picking number 1 overall for a reason. I don't see it. But what if they take Abdul Carter? What if they take Travis Hunter at number 1? Yeah, I just still don't see it. Okay. What about the Rams? If Matthew Stafford goes somewhere else, I could see that. He's got a home in Malibu. But a lot of things have to happen for that to fall into place, including the Rams and Matthew Stafford deciding to part ways. And we are not there yet. Now, if that were to happen, then that's a different conversation. But we, Sam, are not there yet.
Well, let me just go back to something that I said a while ago, and I think we both laughed at it at the time, but there is some synergy there, and perhaps it could happen. And I brought this name up just a little while ago, but let's say Minnesota, the Vikings. Again, Brett Favre went from the Packers to the Jets to the Vikings. The Jets chapter was ugly. The Vikings chapter was an NFC Championship appearance. Don't ask Paul Allen. That went very well outside of a fateful interception that could have been a 60-yard field goal attempt to send that Vikings team to the Super Bowl. But what about Minnesota? When you talk about weapons, when you talk about what happened with Sam Darnold, supported the way that he was by O'Connell, coach of the year, that feels like something that Aaron Rodgers would want. Whether Minnesota wants that in the building is another story, but from a receiving standpoint, we're not exactly sure. I think what the future of Aaron Jones would be there, but that team certainly offensively answered a lot of questions, had a very strong defense, and only lost to 2 football teams this past season. Minnesota's headed in the right direction, but then again, they may stick with Darnold. They've obviously got JJ there, but the idea of having JJ there, knowing that Rodgers doesn't have to be your long-term solution, that feels like an amazing stopgap in a division that respects him and that he knows very well.
So with any Aaron Rodgers potential pairing here, we always have to step back and say, would both sides want it? When it comes to the Titans, no, why would Aaron Rodgers want that other than just living in Nashville,
right?
And taking guitar lessons? Like, why? And taxes. Why would you want that? When it comes to, people have speculated the Browns. I obviously work for the Browns. I don't know that that would be Aaron's preferred destination. When it comes to the Vikings, let's turn it around. I don't know why the Vikings would want it. You say there's some synergy there, but just because Favre went to the Vikings, doesn't mean Rodgers has to go to the Vikings.
No. I was speaking that synergy, but also NFC North is kind of where I was going there.
I don't think the Vikings would want Aaron Rodgers.
Interesting.
I'll just say that. I don't. They drafted J.J. McCarthy. You could probably go get him if you want to give them, a 1 or maybe a high 2.
Sure.
But they have J.J. They believe in J.J., and they can always bring back Sam Darnold at a price that is likely cheaper than it would have been if they hadn't faltered down the stretch.
Now, speaking of price,
those 2 options to me, are better than Aaron Rodgers.
Real quick, what about the price on Rodgers? I wonder what.
Who knows what the price is? It's whatever he wants the price to be.
Is it? Is he still demanding a number based on what we saw?
Oh, no. I'm not suggesting he could write a blank check.
Okay. Right.
It's whatever he's going to feel comfortable playing for. There isn't going to be he's not getting 50 or 40. I don't think he's getting 30. It's an incentive-laden deal. So he has to decide if he's willing to play at a number far below current elite market value at the end of his career, simply trying to win. Well, Rodgers isn't going to go someplace where he doesn't think he can win a championship. He is not simply playing out the final year of his career to put up numbers. He's going to play for the love of the game, but he's also going to play for a championship. And that's why he's not going to go to Tennessee, and that's why I don't think he'd go to Vegas. It just doesn't make sense.
What's impressive about the league really is that as we have this conversation, the fact that there are only 8 teams, and you could argue it's 7 or 8, the fact that there's only 7 or 8 teams in the league that truly need a quarterback speaks to what the draft has been recently.
Oh, I disagree. I think there are far more teams than that.
Really? I mean, if you take the standings and just line them up, 32-1, and look at the teams, it looks like 8 holes. It really does.
I think you're looking at it respectfully the wrong way.
Okay.
You right now have Geno Smith penciled in as the Seahawks quarterback. They need a quarterback. Okay. He's well into his 30s here. He makes a big number. And while Geno Smith is a very good quarterback, and I respect that guy a lot, is he your long-term answer? No. I guarantee you the Seahawks are going to draft a quarterback this year. The question is where? And the question is, does that developmental guy have the ability to take over, whether it's this year or next? The Dolphins need a quarterback. Because they can't go into this season without a legitimate backup behind Tua.
Yeah. You can't count Tua for 17.
Tua, but the Dolphins are in that weird spot where they paid a guy. The guy's pretty good. The guy's had trouble staying on the field, and they know they need a legitimate backup. How about Daniel Jones, where some people pencil him in as a starter? How about Daniel Jones in Miami? How about Dylan Gabriel in Miami as a mid-round draft pick who's a lefty? I know it's a low-hanging fruit. It's a lazy comparison. They're both lefty. They're both little. Tua's rocked up. Dylan Gabriel isn't. But they, in my eyes, need a quarterback. Okay? So there are guys that could be starters for the, let's say, 8 teams that you say need a quarterback.
Yes.
I would say that list could be double the 8, and some of those would-be starters would rather take backup jobs elsewhere.
Interesting.
For teams that are definitely in the market for somebody.
I just the idea that New England solved the quarterback situation this season, the idea that Denver solved the quarterback situation this season, the idea that Chicago knows that they solved it, the fact that Carolina even came back around to solve, I would think they've solved that situation at this point. Sure. That I thought this season showed a lot of promise that way, including Minnesota, who's convincing themselves right now they saw enough out of JJ to say that they've got the future there as well. That's nice. Obviously,
they drafted the guy in the first round.
Of course. But again,
pick.
that's again, ask Chicago and plenty of other teams, and ask Trey Lance. I mean, that doesn't always, that isn't always the answer. Obviously,
does New Orleans need a quarterback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Clear.
Yes. I mean, I said 8. If you're saying 16, I'm saying it's much closer to 12 than 16.
Okay.
But that's fine. But okay, so you want to go? Okay, so do we want to go? You mentioned Daniel Jones. You want to go there right now? I mean, I think he's
Daniel Jones next.
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I were Daniel Jones, I would tell him don't go to the Jets. Okay. And I would tell that to Sam Darnold as well. Not because I don't have faith in Aaron Glenn or Darren Moogie. I do. I have faith in them both. But neither should go back to the town where their careers began and honestly where they were beaten down. So neither should go back there. Okay, one to the Jets, one to the Giants. Let's just take that off. I could see Daniel Jones in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields. I could see Daniel Jones in Cleveland as a bridge starter. I could see Daniel Jones in Miami as a reliable backup behind Tua. I could see Daniel Jones in Dallas backing up Dak. I could see Daniel Jones, if the Rams were to move on from Matthew Stafford, as a starting quarterback in LA with the Rams. I could see him in Seattle backing up Geno. I could see him in Baltimore backing up Lamar. When was the last time the Ravens had a legitimate backup? All due respect to Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, but behind Lamar Jackson. Let's keep going down the list. I could see Daniel Jones staying in Minnesota if Sam Darnold were to leave. That's why you actually went out and got him late last year for that eventual scenario. Or to somehow put a transition tag or something on him if you were to leave and then get some kind of compensation. You know what I'm saying? Daniel Jones, to me, is the most fascinating wild card. I know that sounds nuts. the most fascinating wild card of this entire quarterback carousel, because he could choose to go somewhere where he could start, or he could choose to go somewhere where he is a high value backup, which is basically what he did last year, but only for a couple of weeks. Be a high value backup where he is now A, trade bait if somebody gets injured, or B, ready to step in for a playoff team and basically take a rehab year. He's fascinating because he has started in and won a playoff game. He has shown glimpses. Behind Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, he has the most rushing yards of any quarterback in the NFL since he came into the league. Go stop your average NFL fan on the street. Say, hey, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Jalen Hurts is in the conversation as well, obviously. Who's quarterback for? Rushing. Who's quarterback for? Nobody's going to say Daniel Jones. It's Daniel Jones. So to me, I'm not going to say the world is his char-grilled oyster from New Orleans, but he is going to have a long list of options.
I'm going to steal yours here. Daniel Jones and the San Francisco 49ers.
That one works great as well.
That feels great.
Yep.
You got to have Daniel Jones in a strong, supported system with a quarterback-friendly coaching staff. And you have to know, or you have to go into it thinking this guy starts no more than 7 games for us. And that could happen. I mean, Brock obviously was injured and Brock didn't miss multiple games this past season, but that feels, you said reclamation. That was the reclamation that Darnold needed for his next jump start. It feels like Jones should want that, and San Francisco needs someone behind Purdy, because they never even expected Purdy to be this. He obviously is, and he's going to get paid. Daniel Jones feels right with that.
Now, if you want to go to San Francisco, there is a fascinating make-believe scenario here. Brock Purdy should get the deal done. The Niners have made all public indications, and I can tell you private indications as well, that they are working hard to get something done with Brock Purdy. But if for some reason that were to fall apart, what would Brock Purdy bring in a trade? Now, the new team has to sign him and pay him. And then what would Aaron Rodgers look like coming home to the Bay Area, finally getting his draft day boyhood wish and playing for Kyle Shanahan? Just let that ruminate. Wouldn't that be fun?
That's kind of nice.
That one would be fun. No, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Look, if Aaron were to see this, he would say it's clickbait. Yeah, I have no knowledge of this happening. I am throwing things against the wall and will not pretend that it is anything other than just spitballing, make-believe fun here a month before free agency. But wouldn't that one be wild?
That one's great. That San Francisco and Rodgers has long been discussed. We never got to see Brady in San Francisco. Would be pretty cool to see Rodgers there. And again, surrounded. And when you look at teams that are in this quarterback conversation and you're looking at the top of the league, obviously Minnesota stands out because of the standings from last season, but nobody thinks the Niners aren't going to be in the conversation for winning the NFC next season. That's a great one. All right, you want to go to Cousins is obviously,
sure.
That's pretty amazing with what happened to him this past season. This one, I'm stunned.
Now, there is a scenario in which the Falcons keep Kirk Cousins. He'd be a $27.5 million backup. They've got to pay him one way or the other. They could keep him. I don't think that's going to happen, but there is a scenario in which that happens. If he is cut loose, which is the likely outcome here, the most obvious one is the Cleveland Browns. Now, I am saying this without amazing insight. You guys know that I do work for the Cleveland Browns. I am merely connecting dots. I have not had that conversation with anyone in the building. Promise you that. Promise you. It makes sense, though. He and Kevin Stefanski certainly have familiarity from Minnesota. It makes sense on a lot of levels. The Browns need a bridge quarterback if they are to draft one. And I don't know that that's going to happen as well, but it makes sense, certainly. They're sitting at 2. They have 33. They have multiple 3s. You could argue the second-day quarterbacks are even more intriguing this year than the first-day quarterbacks. That hasn't happened in a long while. Tip of the cap to Dane Brugler, my guy at The Athletic, who went deep down this rabbit hole recently on a podcast with Robert Mays. Tip of the cap to both of those guys, actually. The Browns make sense. Now, it would be unlike the situation in Atlanta last year. They would be very upfront with him and say, hey, look, we're probably drafting a rookie quarterback here, right? And they're not going to blindside him with the 9th overall pick like they did a year ago in Atlanta. But that one makes sense. I could also see him in Pittsburgh. Now, you ask, can Kirk Cousins really move? Wouldn't he be better suited for an indoor venue? Yeah, perhaps. But I would also argue that Achilles does a little bit better on grass than it does on field turf. Go ask Aaron Rodgers about Achilles and field turf. I think that a year removed from the surgery, Kirk Cousins is going to move better. And if you believe him and take him at his word, and I would never question his word, his shoulder would feel better. Got banged up, he says, late in the season. That was revealed during Super Bowl week. I think he could play. Kirk Cousins maybe in Vegas as a bridge quarterback. That's indoors. That would be interesting. Would Tom Brady want him there? I don't know. I can't imagine Kirk Cousins goes somewhere as a backup. But it is a free quarterback. Basically, the same situation the Steelers had a year ago. You pay the veteran minimum. The Broncos paid for the rest of Russell Wilson's considerable salary. That's what you have now with Cousins if he is let go. So he could choose to be a backup somewhere. And it's a free quarterback. I have no idea where he's going to go, to be honest with you. But he's going to be somewhere, and he is going to start meaningful games next year.
You said Vegas. I'm going to go there. Chip Kelly, the greatest regular season statistically for Nick Foles was with Chip Kelly and Mark Sanchez. Those were the Philadelphia head coaching years, which many people say, was this ugly chapter in Eagles history. They did win a division and play a playoff game with Chip Kelly there. And again, he squeezed more out of what was, again, Nick Foles, the Super Bowl run. This is well before that. This is Nick Foles in an MVP conversation, throwing 7 touchdown passes in one game against the Raiders. That was with Chip Kelly as his head coach. And Mark Sanchez had a resurgence after his time with the Jets with the Eagles and Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly gets more out of quarterbacks than we expect. That feels great for Cousins. I know we're going to talk Russell Wilson and the connection with Pete Carroll, and of course that could be the Raiders' answer. But if it's not, Cousins in Vegas is the one. I mean, I think Cousins is the belle of the ball when you look at all of what's available here. If you're looking for one season, I think Cousins is the belle of the ball and the most potential. This is someone who threw for 500 yards just last season. Slightly thinking about the Minnesota reunion there. That's, but it just feels like they did it and they wouldn't want to confuse things further with JJ. Right. Exactly. So
not happening.
Vegas, I Chip Kelly could do the most with Kirk Cousins. That's how I see it, period. And
fascinating. Yeah. And again, it goes back to the question, does Tom Brady want Kirk Cousins?
Yeah.
Because any Raider quarterback conversation, just stop dead in your tracks and write on the wall, does Tom Brady want? And then put a blank space and then type or write in that quarterback's name.
Well, since you did that, why don't we go to Russell Wilson next?
Okay. Does Tom Brady want Russell Wilson? Yeah. Does Pete Carroll want Russell Wilson? People see the connection. A year ago, there were people close to Russell who told me that Vegas was maybe not the preferred destination, but certainly high on his list. It didn't happen, right? It wasn't mutual, at least not entirely throughout the organization, and it didn't happen. What would happen now? Well, wait a minute, Andrew, didn't Pete and Russell have their differences, and that's one of the reasons the Seahawks moved to trade him? Yes, that is true. Wait a minute, Andrew, didn't Russell and the Legion of Boom or the defense as a whole have their differences? Sure. Yeah. By the end, that relationship was fit for a breakup. Absolutely. All of those things are true. However, I've also been told that you need to go back in the last 18 months. There was a thaw in the ice, let's say. That's not the right way to say this. That sides have made up. right? When Richard Sherman and Cliff Averill, I think Cliff Averill was the other partner, had their restaurant opening. They have a restaurant up there. Regardless, there was a reunion in the last 18 months where everyone came together. Let's just put it that way. And I've been told that, you know what? Everyone's getting along again. Everyone's getting along again. Would Pete and Russell come back together again? I think on a personal level, they could make it work. Yeah, I do think that. But on a football level, again, does Tom Brady want Russell Wilson? I don't know. I don't know. And if not Vegas, then where? I could see him in Miami. I could see him in Miami as the backup for Tua. 100%. I could absolutely see that. I could see him. Where else?
Well, while you go here and think of one more, and I like the Miami thing, but I'll say with Russell Wilson, what makes the most sense is I was shocked at what Pittsburgh got out of Russell Wilson last season. I think him and Tomlin, clearly there was something
Not at
there.
the end, though.
I could still see that Russell, when you compare it to what happened in Denver, I could see Russ saying, stay here. This worked. I don't know what the Pickens relationship is. Obviously, I mean, Pickens and anybody is a questionable relationship, but they caught some magic there that feels like something you might want to run back. Nobody had Pittsburgh where they were this season. And yeah, finishing the season with 4 straight losses and then 5 straight losses, obviously, I mean, that was brutal. That was ugly, but beating the Ravens when they did in that first matchup and looking like a team that was playing for the division at the end of the season, that looked good. That did look good. And by the way, and when you ask about Brady, Vegas, and Russell Wilson, there's got to be a part of Brady that thinks and remembers, of course, what he did in Tampa. So when we ask, would Brady want Rodgers and Wilson? Yes, there might be something in the deep annals of their relationship that we don't know about that could stop that process. But couldn't Brady see himself in both of those? Couldn't Brady see himself in Rodgers and Wilson more than anyone else on the list? Sure. That's what it seems like.
He's also, you would have to think, an amazingly harsh critic and a tough grader of quarterback papers.
Yeah, much like Jordan, right? Think. Yeah, like Michael Jordan when he was trying to run a team and drafting Kwame Brown. Yeah, that's tough. You're in a different spot.
Go read the book When Nothing Else Matters. He broke Kwame Brown. He broke him. Now, I'm not suggesting Brady's going to do that. He's not.
But that's a young player, right?
Whistle.
And remember, that's a younger player. That's a younger player.
I don't know. That one I truly don't know.
Well, why don't we go Fields then?
Here's a hot take.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson may have trouble finding an obvious answer.
That's why your Miami opinion might be best there.
I think it's okay. Justin Fields, I think, stays in Pittsburgh. I think I know you were pushing there for Russell. I don't get the feeling that that's where they're going to go. I think it's going to be Justin Fields and potentially draft a guy. He's younger. The offense had its limitations. But if Justin Fields does truly hit free agency, I think he's going to be a highly sought after backup. And maybe he can go somewhere and start. Maybe he can go to Vegas and start. Maybe he can go to Tennessee and start if they don't take a quarterback at number 1. Maybe he can go to Miami and be the backup. Maybe he can go to Cleveland. I don't get that vibe, but hey, he played college football in Ohio. Maybe he could go there. There are a lot of teams. Maybe he can go to Seattle and be the backup behind Geno Smith, and a pretty good option if Geno gets banged up behind what was last year a suspect offensive line. Maybe he can go to New Orleans and be an affordable starter and bridge after the Saints move on from Derek Carr, which we think is inevitable. He's going to have a lot of options. He is, to me, very much in the Daniel Jones bucket, although Jones has had playoff success and Fields does not. These are guys that are going to choose, do I want to go someplace and start and potentially be a bridge, or do I want to go someplace and be a highly compensated backup?
In regards to Fields Philadelphia is one that I think would be interesting.
There's a highly compensated backup.
Compensated backup. Go ahead and swap your Pittsburgh quarterback from Pickett to Justin Fields. And considering what they do with the RPO, Fields looks like somebody who would not stutter that offense in regards to swapping Hurts for Fields. That looks like somebody that would fit very well. Of course, who the offensive coordinator is going to be interesting now that Kellen Moore is the head coach in New Orleans. But I like that one. When you look at who's been the backup to Hurts with Mariota and Pickett, Fields makes sense in that regard, certainly. And there's two more to finish with, Andrew. I think Darnold is certainly the most interesting here, but we can talk Darnold and David Carr. I think both of those are fascinating. So
let's do Darnold. I think it's Minnesota or it's Vegas, just what my gut tells me. I think we've talked both of those through extensively. I think it's Minnesota or Vegas. If I'm him, I stay in Minnesota. You have weapons. You could get paid. And yeah, if they eventually pull the Band-Aid off and put JJ in there, you know what? Look to 2026.
Sure. Yeah, that's I think it's a good one, and we can finish the car. I have nothing more. The Darnold thing feels like he's the most supported there, and it wouldn't be a tough conversation. He knows, right? He knew this past season what the story was there, so that's the easiest conversation. But Darnold may garner real money, right? I mean, that's the thing. Darnold Darnold's going to be sought after based on what happened.
Sure,
yes, everyone's going to remember what happened week 18, sure, and maybe in the playoff game, whatnot. But Darnold, from the potential that he had when he was drafted, and if you're someone that's convincing yourself that we've got the offensive coaching staff here that can support him, Darnold's going to be sought after considerably. So Minnesota may not even be able to keep him there. And then Carr.
I don't know where Derek Carr is going to go, but I do know that from watching the Kellen Moore presser, it doesn't sound like he's going to stay in New Orleans. Now, you could also just say that Kellen Moore was doing the right thing to do, both politically and organizationally, and that is not make any commitment to a guy right now. We still have a month before free agency, and a lot can change. If Derek Carr is back, they're going to have to do something about that contract. It is heavy. It is a heavy lift. They've got to figure out if they want to move on, what is the best way to do it and when is the best way to do it. But I think Derek Carr is going to hit the market. When he signed with the Saints, it was between the Jets or the Saints. However, Jets management has turned over since then. Would they still want him? I don't know. I think if I'm Derek Carr, I get cut, I wait, I get paid. This is just me. And then I wait for the phone to ring when somebody inevitably gets hurt, which is what I said, by the way, a year ago, right? A year ago is what Ryan Tannehill should do. Not sign anywhere, wait for the phone to ring. I don't know if it did or didn't ring, but he never came back. I think Derek Carr, with enough good tape from last year, there's bad as well, but with enough good tape from last year, if he just waited, some contender is going to need him at one point. That's how I would play Derek Carr.
I'm going to say Indy for Derek Carr for what you just said.
We've forgotten Indy through all of this.
True.
Yeah.
That's
a good one. You know what?
Yeah.
Justin Fields, great one for Indy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's a good fit and a good swap for Anthony Davis there. And considering, not Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Richardson, but considering what they don't know about Richardson in Indy and what they didn't exactly solve this past season, a great quarterback behind him. And you thought Flacco was going to be that great option behind him, and it just didn't work out perfectly. But you're going to need a great option there. And what I like about Carr is such a measured personality. Carr is going to be someone who is going to want to instill knowledge there with Anthony Richardson. I could see that being a special relationship there between Carr and Richardson, and they might find something there in that quarterback room. But I like Carr there in Indy for a team that looks like they're almost there, right? That is a team that is almost there or almost turning things up. Well, it looked, but doesn't it come down to that? I mean, most teams it comes down to quarterback.
Sure.
They've got great weapons and just didn't find exactly what they needed there this season.
They've had a lot of draft picks as well that have not necessarily come through, drafting for trades, and it doesn't always work. All right, so there's the quarterback carousel. It's going to be wild. I don't know that we really solved anything. And remember, past performance is not necessarily indicative of future gains. I did not send Aaron Rodgers in any way, shape, or form. I did not to San Francisco. We are spitballing here. There are no guarantees, and there is no money back on this whatsoever. Probably all of my picks and my destinations are going to be wrong. Let's move through quickly here. And I want to tap the base real quick on this Noah Lyles and Tyreek Hill thing. So they've been doing a lot of trash talking about who's faster. Noah Lyles, by the way, if you don't remember, won the gold medal for Team USA in Paris in the 100 meters. The 200 meters is his best event. He had COVID. He didn't win the 200, but he did win the 100 and brought home gold for Team USA at the Summer Games, at the Paris Games this past August. Yes, we were in August by the time he did that. Wow, man. Seems like 1,000 years ago. Anyway, DK Metcalf, when I sat down with him at training camp with the Seahawks, and he has, by the way, been impressive when he has, at his weight at 235 pounds, run the 100 and participated in legit track meets. He said that he could win a gold if he dropped 30 pounds, which is absurd. But Tyreek Hill has now agreed. Noah Lyles and Tyreek Hill have agreed to race somewhere. We don't know where, nor when, nor the distance they will race, but they have agreed to race. I'm going to say it right now, and I will guarantee it right now. Noah Lyles will beat Tyreek Hill. Noah Lyles may even smoke Tyreek Hill. There's a difference between international track speed and the fastest man on earth, the man who won the 100 at the Olympics, and aging football speed that once had track speed. Now, Tyreek Hill is probably the fastest football player I've ever seen on a field, either in television or in person. He has a gear that nobody else has. He has a gear that you think he's going to get caught, and then he wins, and he's in the end zone, and he's 15 yards ahead of the dude. He makes it look effortless, but that is different than track speed. And I'm going to say it again. Noah Lyles will smoke Tyreek Hill. I don't care the distance. People say, well, what if it's only 60 meters and not 100 meters? Tyreek Hill might have that short burst. He might be able to win at 60. Noah Lyles has been, and we saw it with the 100, a late finisher, as many 100 guys are. Maybe then Tyreek Hill can win. All right. I looked up best 60 times. Noah Lyles, best 60 time, 6.43. That was at the 2024 USA Track and Field Indoor Championships. All right. He is in that 6'4", 2, 3, 4, 5 range. Okay. Tyreek Hill's best 60 time is like 6'6". Okay. So 6'7" actually is his best 60 time. Noah Lyles would smoke Tyreek Hill. Best 100, obviously, Noah Lyles is better. His best 100 is 9.81. 9.81. That was in the Diamond League in London. You know what the Diamond League is? Go watch Sprinter on Netflix. That is the best of the best racing for cold cash professionally all around the world. 9.81. Tyreek Hill's best time, 10.19. Okay. Noah Lyles is going to beat him. I'm going to watch. It's going to be great. But Noah Lyles will beat Tyreek Hill. Guaranteed.
Now, if this were on a football field and if Noah Lyles was trying to play football, we understand that.
But they're not.
Tyreek Hill, they're not at all. They're not at all. So I'll compare this to one thing. Usain Bolt, we saw trying, somebody thought, okay, what if you put Usain Bolt on a football field and put a helmet on him, and could he be a receiver? And it turned out he couldn't. The helmet bothered him. He couldn't really, obviously catching was not something he had done a ton of with the football. So that didn't look impressive. I'm totally with you when you take, again, fish out of water, right? Tyreek essentially is going to be a fish out of water where Noah Lyles can breathe underwater. That's what this is going to be most likely. I also want to remind everyone about, do you remember when CJ2K, when Chris Johnson raced the cheetah?
Mm-hmm.
So he did. I mean, I went back and watched it. It actually looked like Chris Johnson had a little bit of a head start on the cheetah in the way they did that. They had to sort of entice the cheetah to go, but he did. I mean, technically on film, Chris Johnson beat a cheetah. I think that would actually be more fun, is to see Tyreek versus a cheetah, since that's the nickname at this point. But the Lyles thing feels like it feels like it might be more of a boat race than anything else.
Noah Lyles just tweeted, by the way.
Yes.
So he said, I was stopped at an airport just now and asked, why am I so confident? Where does my confident confidence come from? And he said, therapy. Fascinating answer. Basically, being able to be vulnerable and authentic and talk things through. And that is where he finds his confidence. Fascinating answer. And he's going to win. I guarantee you. Also, breaking news as we sit here, the agent Brent Tessler for Raheem Mostert tweets that Raheem Mostert will be moving on from the Dolphins, as evidently they've already had those conversations as I said earlier, get closer and closer to free agency. Also, Sam, breaking news as we sit here and record this episode on a Friday on Valentine's Day during the Eagles championship parade. I know you want to end it with a thought on that. Howie Roseman is going to need some stitches. He has taken a can of beer off his forehead.
No.
Yes. Howie Roseman is bleeding from his forehead. In all seriousness, I hope he is okay. He has, at the Eagles parade on a float, taken a flying can of beer off his forehead.
Now, how does this compare to Tom Brady throwing the Lombardi trophy across a boat to, I believe, did he throw it to Gronk? I think Gronk caught that one. I believe that was Brady to Gronk on the Lombardi trophy, if I remember correctly. But obviously,
quick story about that.
Yes, please.
I was the one hosting that parade on NFL Network, our live coverage, and my clip went viral because we were going to break. Coming up next, more from Tampa, and then Brady he starts to go into the motion. Yeah. I go no, and then he threw it, and then it was caught, and I'm like, okay, and then we went to break.
It's great. That's so good. I love that. I wanted to share one thing. So I'm not in Philly today, obviously, at this parade. And in February 2018, I was there. And you see some fascinating things at a parade. And remember, this was 11 in the morning. And as I was just walking towards where the buses might be, and of course, where the players are going to end up speaking.
Foles caught the ball. Brady didn't. Foles caught the ball. Brady didn't. Foles caught the ball. Brady didn't. Foles caught the ball.
This is what you told me an hour ago you wanted to play?
Yes.
Why? For what?
You just see fascinating things, and I just thought that was just so Philadelphia to me to see at 11 a.m. this dude on his cell. So he is having a conversation with somebody on the phone doing that, and that's at the end who he says, "Okay, I'll get right back to you." And then he's
we're not showing Saquon helping out a 3-year-old on their birthday. You're showing that drunk. Is what you've had all week to plan for this, and that's the clip you wanted.
I was just stunned to see that, and I just thought it was so Philadelphia in that moment. That is all. That is simply it. So there will be better moments, and of course, I mean, obviously the Kelsey thing is so well remembered, but that was that. And the other thing I just wanted, this just hit me. You and I we spoke on Monday. We sort of put a cap and a button on the Super Bowl. And then something just absolutely hit me. And I don't think this is going to be something where anyone has to be on the other side of this. I just really, it's just stunning because it happened in one season. But this doesn't have to be screaming and arguing, but I'd love for someone to come up with a better answer than this. And I think Google isn't going to provide it, but I think we can now say definitively, Saquon Barkley is the greatest Eagle of all time.
There are 25 Eagles in Canton, Ohio.
There are,
including Reggie White.
Yes, but can we just look at this? There are a litany of reasons. Saquon Barkley set the all-time rushing in a season by an Eagle. He shattered that record by LaShawn McCoy. He obviously ran for 2,000 yards in a season. He has the most yards rushing in any single game of any Eagle, obviously with the 255 against the Rams. For the betterment of the team, he opted out of a Week 18 chance at that regular season history, Eric Dickerson, to save himself for a shot at a championship, which of course they did win. He broke the all-time NFL record for yards in a combined regular and postseason. He single-handedly won the divisional game against the Rams with his third and fourth 60-yard touchdowns against the same opponent. He holds the record for 60-yard touchdown runs in a season, including one more that he had in the championship game. He also rushed 3 touchdowns in that NFC championship game. He was the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year. He was a finalist for league MVP. The Eagles won their second ever Super Bowl in his first season on a brand new team. He's going to be, as you mentioned, in Canton one day. And cherry on top, he is a painful reminder to one of Philadelphia's greatest rivals of all time in the Giants as well. He is the greatest Eagle of all time. I don't even think it's a debate. And yes, it's only one season, but that resume is impossible to beat. And I don't think the prerequisite has to be winning a championship, but Saquon Barkley is the greatest Eagle of all time with that resume handed in, period.
Okay, I don't have the strength, nor, honestly, if I could be so bold, I really don't care to argue this with you. You're an Eagle fan, but I would just say this. You're not arguing. What you just laid out has nothing to do with being the greatest Eagle of all time. What you just said is he had the greatest season in Eagles history by any player. Those are two vastly different things.
I disagree.
If you hold on, wait a minute. There are 25 Eagles in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The franchise has been around 100 years, or how many ever years it's been around. Okay, he had a great season. He had the greatest season ever. If you truly want to say that a player can be the greatest player in the franchise history by having only one season for that franchise, to me, that is a condemnation of the history of the franchise. But you do you.
That's okay. I mean, look, there's not that many championships to choose from, and a championship season is more special than any other. And he also has the most athletic play of any Eagle and maybe any player ever with the backwards hurdle. Yeah. That's another one.
You want to make one season a career?
He did it all in one season. And frankly, the best.
If you want to say that one season is worth being named the greatest, like the greatest player ever, then
I think it is. And by the way, and I think the best argument would even be Nick Foles. When you take what he did in 2013 and then, of course, what he did in 2017, I think Foles would be your next best argument. Reggie White's a Packer, not an Eagle in my eyes. He might be part of that conversation. Randall was great. Donovan was great. Jaworski was great. Bednarik's going to be a big part of this conversation. But
you would think
Saquon Barkley is the greatest Eagle of all time. It happened. He did it all. He did a lot. But that one season, he did it. And I don't even think you need to have second interviews with anybody else. I think he's the greatest of all time, period. But there you go. But that's my passion. Exactly. That's that.
Have a great weekend at that one. Whatever you want. There you go. Howie Roseman just flipped the can of beer for a compensatory third round pick.